Welcome to an Abington Candidates Roundtable, a special one for the upcoming election on April 25th. Of course, if you're not sure as to your voting status, you're somebody who wants to vote in the upcoming election, you want to make sure you check with Leanne and Barbara at Abington Town Hall, or you can give them a call. Pretty sure that they'll help you out. But that election again, Saturday, April 25th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we have 3 of the 4 candidates who are going to be here for this very special candidates roundtable, something that we all get together. We had a conversation, and they're going to talk about some of the questions that you, the public, sent in, as we have a very special order as to how we're going to do that. Before the cameras went live, we did pick an order as to how we were going to do opening statements. Opening statements will be 2 minutes for each candidate, and then from there we will give each candidate a turn to pick a question. We got 25 questions from the folks who sent them in. We thank you for everybody who sent them in. There were some that they were similar questions, so if you don't hear it phrased the way that you sent it, I'm pretty sure that you'll know that it's a question that you had asked. But we have picked an order for that, and instead of having each candidate answer the question, the particular candidate who picked the number will let the next candidates to say whether they want to expand upon or say something different. If they don't, then we'll move on to the next candidate and they'll pick a question, they'll pick a number that we have. Again, we have 1 through 25, they'll give us that indication. The order that we have right now, starting off, is Mr. Ken Coyle. Ken is a candidate for the 1-year term on the select board. Ken, if you will, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have any prepared statement. I just want to go a little bit about my past, my history here in town, and also maybe one of the reasons why I'm running. I want to thank Abington Cam and Kevin, Mr. Tachi, for hosting this. It's a pretty cool idea. Pretty much a lifelong Abington resident. I live on High Street with my family and my stepchildren. My daughter lives in Whitman. I've been on a lot of volunteer boards in town. Started with the Finance Committee, like Mr. Eddie himself has also. Then I went to, oh my gosh, Sewer Commission, Board of Health, and 3 terms as a select board member. And actually a little more than 3 terms because we had to stay on. COVID had just started. So I really enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed serving the community. I also do some other things around town. You probably see me at Trukey's, where I'm embarrassed to say, no, I'm not embarrassed to say, okay. I'm proud to say that I've been there for 50 years. And I'm only like 52, so it's pretty amazing. But and I've been in the Lions Club and Abington Lions Club. We do a lot of great things for the community, over 20 years. And a few very dedicated volunteers in town. We formed Abington Celebrates, brought the fireworks back, and we do a lot of things. And I'm going to plug the townwide yard sale is coming up. In not this weekend, the 27th, I think. No, I don't even remember, the 17th or something. But anyways, I'm rambling, and my light's yellow, so I have to stop talking. But I could go on and on about this community, and I love Abington, and I bleed green. So thank you for this forum. And
not to speak for Kevin, I believe that it's April 18th.
April 18th, townwide yard sale, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Yep.
Next up will be Mr. Daniel Eddy. He is a candidate for one of the 2 3-year terms on the select board. Daniel, we have 2 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. And similar to Ken, I don't have anything prepared either, so I'm just going to talk to you guys. First of all, it's, Friday, 6:30. Thank you guys so much, everybody, for being here. Candidates also. Thank you guys for agreeing to coordinate this and be a part of this. I think it's really great for everyone watching, those who do, to see us and hear us and help inform the decisions that they're making. So it's really good. I've been back to Abington now since 2019 is when I moved back. I lived in East Boston for about 3 years before that while I was serving on active duty in the Marines. and then 14 years of service with the Marines. Prior to that, I grew up in Brockton. I grew up in Brockton. I went to Brockton schools, but I was like 20 feet away from the Abington line on Court Street and Mill Street. So I spent a lot of my time in Rockland, in Abington, and Whitman, more so than I did Brockton, I would say. I ended up, I think I crawled under the old Beaver Brook Park with the wood. I don't know if you guys know, there's a spot that you can crawl up underneath where everybody can sit. And I have vivid memories of crawling under there and hiding from my friends there. So spent a lot of time in Abington. I was really happy that when my wife and I, we were dating at the time, decided that we were going to get out of the city because I wanted chickens and I wanted more than 900 square feet, that we settled on Abington. And I live two houses away from what used to be Stone's. Now it's Route 18 Superstore, which I love those guys over there. But I, wanted to get involved right away. And when I came back to Abington, and I joined the finance committee because I thought that was going to be the best way to learn as much as I can about how town operates. So,
Great, thank you, Daniel. And finally is Wendy Happel. Wendy Happel, also a candidate for one of the 2 3-year terms on the Select Board. You have 2 minutes, Wendy.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Wendy Happel, and I've lived in Abington for 22 years. I've been married for 22 years. My husband Jim is in the sheet metal union. We have a daughter. Her name's Caitlin. She goes to Suffolk University. She's a sophomore. I work for a wire and cable distributor in Randolph. In Abington, I live on Adams Street, and so I live on the corner of Adams and Washington, so I've seen a lot of stuff go on over in that area. Prior to being trying to get on select board, being a select board candidate, I was on school committee. Was on school committee for 8 years. I served as chairwoman for 2 years, and then I was also vice chair and secretary. I was also on the surplus land committee with Kenny at one point, and I was on the fire station committee as well when that first got set up in the beginning. And the reason why I am running for select board is because there's a lot going on right now in town, and I just want to try to do my best to see what I can bring to the table, as far as, helping the town out and the people in town, the kids, and see if we can get out of this mess together pretty quick. And I also want to thank Abington Cam and everybody here for putting this roundtable on. Really appreciate it. Wish Bill was here. That would be excellent, but, I understand, so thank you for having us.
Thank you, Wendy. And just a quick note that Bill did say that he was going to join us, but a last-minute emergency prevented him from being here, and sends his well wishes to the other candidates and wishes that he could be here, but unfortunately he could not. I do want to give a quick note and a thumbs up to a special volunteer in studio, Ellen Delaney, who's here, and she is our timekeeper, keeping all of our candidates on the straight and narrow, not only with her timer, but with her construction paper of red, green, and yellow to keep them to know what their time is. Again, as I had mentioned, the idea here is that each candidate, when it's their turn, they'll pick a number. We'll read the question. I'll read the question to them, and then the other 2 candidates can have an option to either follow up or respond, or pick another number and another question. So, first question in order is Daniel Eddy. Daniel, pick a number, any number, 1 to 25.
7.
7. Lucky number 7. All right. And again, we want to thank the folks who sent these questions, and it was appreciated, and I was overwhelmed by the responses. The folks care about their government, and they care about folks who are running for office. Number 7, Steady, what do you feel the town should do to clean up the sides of the roads? This individual felt as though the streets are not clean and wants to know what the town should do.
Gosh, I think I know that question. If I remember correctly, they were specifically referring to Chestnut. But you know, it's something that affects a lot of the roads in town, and not just our town either. Really, I mean, the only thing we could do is actually police it from a policing perspective. You know, if somebody sees dumping or littering, you know, specifically if police are able to witness that and see it actually stop and do something for that. And I don't know the statistics on, you know, how many times we've actually ticketed somebody for that, but it's certainly you know, what we should be doing. And then when it comes to known dumping areas, you know, if you look at the compost area, they've got cameras, they've got signs that deter folks from actually dumping there illegally. And that's something that, you know, if there are areas in town that are prone to dumps, you know, mattresses or whatever might be thrown out there, specifically that long road on Chestnut, then, you know, we can look to put cameras or signs or things like that to create that deterrence and stop that.
Okay. When do you get the first option? If there's a follow-up response or something that you'd like to add to Mr. Eddy's comment?
No, I think he said exactly what I would have said as well, especially with the cameras. You know, trying to maybe put cameras up in that area, I think would be a good idea.
Ken?
I agree with that as well. However, I remember growing up in Abington, in the Scouts and in the Lions, we've had some community groups go out to certain areas and clean up. I know we had a big Island Grove cleanup before one of our events there, and as Boy Scout, it was funny. We cleaned up around Arnold Park, and I was a little kid. I found a $20 bill on the ground. I remember that to this day because I was like so excited. All the other scouts are going, we're going to clean harder because there's money here. But maybe involve some of the community groups that care as much about the town as we do.
I love that.
All right. Next candidate up is Wendy. You have a choice of any number except number 7. 1 through 25 except 7.
I will do 18 for my daughter's birthday.
Okay, number 18. Okay. We've had ESL community members, including students, taken from us. How do we make sure all members of our community are protected and feel safe? You have 90 seconds, Wendy.
I'm sorry, how are they taken from us? I apologize.
I would think it might be, not that I want to anticipate here, but maybe through immigration,
Okay.
ICE, or something like that. Again, that's what I'm understanding from the question.
Okay. Well, keeping our community safe, I guess, is all about community who lives beside you and around you. Your neighbors can help, and I'm not sure where the police stand with this, so I can't answer for that. But I really, I think just neighborhood watch, if anything. That's beyond really what I know about. I haven't seen it in town, so I really can't speak to this, to be quite honest with you.
Right, and this is when you offer the residents an opportunity to submit questions. I want to make sure that everybody had an opportunity, and
Oh, I understand.
So, and I would say that, Ken, do you have anything to add or to follow up?
I don't really have anything to add. I'm kind of in the same boat as Wendy, and I'm going to plead ignorance and maybe some ESL.
I think English as a second language, if I'm guessing here.
So maybe the question means they weren't able to go to school in Abington, because I don't know what the question honestly is.
That's what I'm getting here. ESL mean English as a second language.
But I don't think that the schools would deny someone from being in school.
So I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, again, it says, how do you make sure all members of our community are protected and feel safe? It says here that they've been taken from us. So that's all I'm trying to interpret here. So if you want, we can move on. There's no further, and I believe, Ken, you have a chance to pick a number.
All right, my puppy just turned 11 yesterday, so we'll say 11.
All right. Number 11 for the puppy.
And I'll blame Faith if the question's tough and I can't figure it out.
There we go.
That's my dog. So.
Ken, the schools are the biggest employer in town. What measures will you take to make sure the jobs of those devoted to our children are protected? You have 90 seconds.
Are they the biggest employer in town?
That's what this.
Or the biggest town?
Again, this is how it was written, and I did my best to tweak it without.
And the question is again, how would I?
The schools are the biggest employer in the town.
Yeah.
What measures will you take to make sure the jobs of those devoted to our children are protected?
I think we need to, as in everything, use common sense and look at the budget with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that we keep as many jobs as we can, whether that be through an override or whether by budget tightening. And it goes with every department, not just the school department, but I know this is a specific school question, but I'd hate to see positions lost. It's a tough question, you know, in these times. I've heard from a couple of people this week that my wife worked for one of the school systems, and some of her friends were getting threatened to be laid off in other towns. So everybody's going through this, and you hate to lose help that you've trained and that the children enjoy having as teachers and other staff. So just got to come up with some ways to be creative and save funds.
Okay. Mr. Eddy, do you have a follow-up or anything you want to add?
Yes, I can add to that. So, I mean, if what it sounds like, what they mean is it's the biggest budget that we've got. That's the way I'm hearing that question, or biggest part of the budget. And if you look at it, it's supplemented heavily by the state, and that's what we're running into in all the towns around us as well. Is that this biggest budget within the town budget is also supplemented so heavily from state funds that we, over the years, especially from my experience on Finance Committee, there was an expectation that would increase year over year. And then eventually we got to a point where it was not increasing, but all the costs were. And so it's not so much that, you know, what are we going to do to protect those positions? It's what are the department heads going to do, and not just school, but every department. You got to run that department like a business. We have to run this town like a business, and you have to be proactive. We know this is a problem now, and if this override passes, we have the ability to set the stage for next year to not be in this position next time. And it's really going to be up to the department heads across the board to set the foundation for that, so we're not having to do this again.
Okay. Wendy, do you have a follow-up or anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I actually think that from what I've been seeing and reading and hearing from the community is that the school committee, the Proposition 2.5, I mean the schools, not the school committee, with the Proposition 2.5, that might lead to like the most trouble as far as passing. And so I really think it's up to the community on how they want to kind of move forward with this. I don't think that we should get rid of any teachers, honestly. I think that they need to be in front of the students. I know that we're in a tough time right now, but a couple of our schools, they only have 2 to 3 grades in them. And I don't know if sharing an assistant principal or sharing some duties between the 2 schools might help, just office-wise, and even the central office if they have to pitch in. But I would just hate to see any teachers have to go because of what's going on right now.
Okay. All right, next up for question is Mr. Eddy. You have a choice. Remember, 7, 18, and 11 are no longer available.
We'll go 17 for 200.
Oh. All right. Well, this one has a little bit more bite here.
Great.
If the override doesn't pass, what solutions do you have if one of the departments doesn't get the funding that it needs? Again, if the override doesn't pass, what solutions do you have if one of the departments, and we know that it's a menu type of an override selection here,
So we'll say hypothetically it passes at town meeting, but then one of the departments doesn't get the full vote.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I would say that there's already a plan in place that the town manager put in there in coordination with each department head. So they would end up executing on, that level funded plan, and then we would have to work with that department specifically, but all the departments to. And I've said this in a few different forums, but I think it's really important that we figure out a 3-year forecast for all the departments, but specifically that one. How do we avoid that happening again? But it all also comes back to how do we get more money, more revenues into the town, and it can't always be from the taxpayers. So the board, along with the town manager, would have to really figure out ways to increase revenues in order to bring that specific department, but also the town back into a position where we're not having to worry about overrides again. So,
Okay. Wendy, do you have a follow-up or anything you'd like to add to Mr. Eddy's answer?
Sure. So the only issue that I think that, like I said before, might be a problem with the town is our school budget. And I think that us as a select board and even the school committee pushing back on DESE, which is the Department of Education, for any unfunded mandates that they always push down. There's a lot of pilot programs that we do and also professional development that can probably be pushed aside for a while. There's also, probably some outdated programs that we're still using as well. I know for there's a couple of hiring websites that we use. One is Springboard, and then there's another one. So I think maybe just kind of going down and just having one of something and not a couple would be helpful as well. So yeah, worried about the school budget.
Okay. Ken, do you have something to add or a follow-up?
I do. I took that as more of a generalized question as to all the departments in
Right.
town, not a specific one. And we have department heads for each of the departments, I believe, that are facing or asking for an override. We also have the Board of Selectmen that are probably in charge of the town hall budget. If one or all the overrides don't pass, then I think it's up to the department heads to come up with solutions, maybe under the guidance of the town manager, along with the Board of Selectmen. The town hall is obviously the town manager. But we have department heads, and I don't know how they're paid well to do a job. And that's going to, unfortunately, be a job if the overrides don't pass.
Okay.
Kevin, could I steal 30 seconds of Ken?
You can. Go ahead, Mr. Eddy.
So we're seeing a lot of pressure from townspeople to put the school issues out in front of us right now. And what I want to see is those same people out there putting the same pressure on the state to get the funding increased. Like whether the override passes or not, we need to get more funding from the state, and I want those same people out there pushing state reps and our governor for the same.
No matter
same
what the
pressure.
outcome
No matter
is.
the
Right.
outcome.
Absolutely.
Agree with that, and I think us participating more statewide as a select board would also be beneficial.
Okay. Any further rebuttal? Okay.
Thanks for your 30 seconds.
All right, Wendy. Wendy, you're up. You have
Already?
you pick a number right now.
Yeah.
7, 18,
You did
11.
17? Oh.
No, Zachary will hold up the board so you can.
You had one job, Zach.
24 for my anniversary. All April too. By the way, I love April.
24. Okay. Wendy, why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish? It doesn't say Wendy, but it's asking in general. Why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I didn't plan on running. I want to say that. I hadn't been thinking about it. A couple people approached me. There was, knowing that there was some open seats coming up. Mm-hmm. And so, kind of talked it over with my family. They weren't super psyched about it, to be quite honest with you, because, I put 8 years in already, and there's a lot. People either like you or they don't. So, you know, I think that my family thought that was more pressure than I do. But they're on board now, so that's all good. And I don't know, there's 13,000 people that are registered to vote in this town, and I thought there was going to be a bunch of people trying to step up, but we really didn't have that. And I don't know, with the Proposition 2.5 right now, it's just worrying me and worrying the future of our town and where we're going. All I see is the yellow and everything. I'm sorry. I'm like, no.
That's Ellen Delaney doing her job.
Thanks, Ellen. So that's the reason why I'm running. I'm running because I've done this before, as far as being on the school board. So just knowing, I guess, what to expect. You know, I always try to put my best foot forward when I'm on a committee, and you know, do whatever I can to help that committee in our town while we're at it. So I think that basically that's the reason why I'm running. Hopefully I get voted in, and you know, I mean, and also too, I think I was worried about, you know, some of the people that thought they were going to run, and you know, I just wanted somebody to stick with it for 3 years and or more, and you know, just kind of get whatever you can from us to put forth to the town.
Okay. Ken, you have an option to either follow up or add to that?
So why am I running, and
Do you want, yeah, why are you running and what do you hope to accomplish? That's what the question was. You can answer it or you can...
I can't believe this, but I actually miss it. You know, I served 9 years as a selectman, and I miss it. I'm running, and I really had never thought I would run again, but I think the town needs a lot of help, and not every other town in South Shore needs the same help as far as money-wise, but the way that I think the town is being run the last few years have not been well. I think we should be more transparent. We should have meetings that people can go to. I can go on, and people say you ought to have your head examined, and anybody that knows me, if you see my scar, I did have my head examined about a year ago. I had a tumor removed. So it's a thankless job, and you don't get paid. Some towns get paid a little, we don't get paid. So I ought to have my head examined, but I think I can help.
Okay. Dan, do you want to respond or give a follow-up?
Yeah, I can do that. You know, so I had joined initially the Finance Committee for 4 years, really to learn how the town operates and like check under the hood and you know, how this whole thing flows. I had, similar to Wendy, I had no intention of running in this election. What fired me up was the way we handled the town manager search committee really bothered me, and so that and all the details that followed really got me inspired to you know, run for this select board. So.
Again, if you're just tuning in, you're tuned in to an Abington Community Access and Media Candidates Roundtable with 3 of the 4 candidates, Ken Coyle, who's running for 1 year on the select board, Daniel Eddy and Wendy Happel both running for the 3-year term. Bill Cormier was not able to make it due to an emergency and sends his regrets. Just want a quick note again, and note some of the folks who are behind the scenes who are working. We got a full crew here from super volunteer Ellen Delaney, who is our masterful timekeeper, as well as some interns between Mar, Zach, and Jameson, all headed up by Mr. Lyons, and on camera we have Dave Bowen and Paul Watson, who you see out in the community from time to time. Ken, you are up next. Numbers that are no longer available: 7, 18, 11, 17, and 24.
Let's pick a number, lucky 13.
13, The biggest factors in crime rates is access to housing and access to education. What are some ideas you'll explore when it comes to affordability in terms of housing and general cost of living?
It's the lack of access to housing, right? Okay.
Biggest factors in crime rate is access to housing and access to education. Problem is, I guess, what will you explore when it comes to affordability in terms of those 2 ideas?
I didn't submit this question, but I am proud to say that, and I think Ellen's a member of this board now too, but the Abington Affordable Housing Trust, we're tapping into some funds and we're doing a lot of great things. I served on that for quite a while, and I think I was a selectman when we brought it before a town meeting and got it passed. It's very important, and they're a very worthwhile project right now. Habitat for Humanity is just finishing up a house that's going, that's being repaired, and that's going to help people in town. There are a lot of grants, there are a lot of funds that are available to help first-time home buyers. So, and now that the ADUs are kind of approved throughout the state, little things like that. But there's got to be, the number one thing is, let's try to keep our taxes down as low as possible so people don't move away and people can afford to live in Abington. So that's the biggest thing, our taxes. We have to keep them in check.
Okay. Mr. Eddy, do you have something to add, or do you have a follow-up to Mr. Coyle's response?
Yeah, I think it's also important that we ensure that we fund our police department in that and continue to fund them, because that's certainly going to help with crime in the city or in the town. But the ADU piece is new for the state, and whatever we can do as a town to make that easier from the building department and the planning board, we should, because that'll open up additional dwelling units for folks to rent at generally lower price. So.
Okay. Wendy, do you have a follow-up or a response that you'd like to add?
No, I agree with these guys. I think that making sure that our police is well funded, that is huge with protecting us and keeping the crime at bay a little bit. And also, I think that grants are the biggest and best opportunity to always try to get what we can from the state, and just always being on top of that of what's going on and what they're offering.
Okay.
Would you guys mind if I just add one more thing that I wanted to talk
Would
about?
you like a rebuttal? 30 seconds?
No, it's not a rebuttal. It's just another idea that was lost in the back there. But anybody that drives by Strawberry Valley Golf Course has seen the abandoned building that was on the property, and the fire department used it for training exercises. Now, I don't see why, and they're going to, the different committees are going to say why you can't do this, but there's a piece of property there in Abington that could possibly donate it to the Habitat for Humanity so that an Abington family could come to town, could stay in town, live there. And the benefit of that is now it's back on the tax rolls. Once they move in, they're paying Abington taxes instead of just sitting there. I know everybody's going to say we've got a use for it. Well, they haven't had a use for it for a long time. That's just my opinion.
Anybody else with a follow-up? Okay. Mr. Eddy, you are up next. As you see, Zachary's holding up what's remaining.
Yeah, we'll go with 6.
6. How will we proceed in the following fiscal years, even if the override passes and budget shortfalls still occur? I'll repeat. How will we proceed as a town in the following fiscal years, even if the override passes and budget shortfalls still occur?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you were to look at the level funding that each department had to put together, just in case the override doesn't go through, they need to continue to look at that this next year, because that could be potential for the following years if costs will continue to increase. And if we don't figure out ways to cut those costs or increase revenues, we're going to be in that same position. So each department needs to still keep that in mind over this next year, that we could be in the same position having to make these same cuts. So how do we avoid that? How do we lower costs? How do we adjust costs of healthcare for the employees? How do we lower costs of trash or increase revenues? That has to be on the minds of every single department in order to avoid the same thing happening again next year. And then I don't know that we do this. I don't remember this in my 4 years of finance committee, but a 3-year forecast. We should be able to identify an estimate of 3 years of costs increasing across the board and have a plan to address that down the road. So it's not, it almost feels like it's a surprise every year, and it really shouldn't be that way.
Wendy, do you have a follow-up or something that you'd like to add to Mr. Eddie's response?
I love the idea of the 3-year forecast. I think that's a very good idea. We're definitely going to have to look at all of our contracts that we have, and whether it's trash or whatever it is. And then, I mean, I hate to even say it, but do we look at the department heads? Do we bring up, is there anybody that's close to retirement? Is it time to replace anyone with lower salaries?
Okay.
Maybe. I know that sounds bad to even say, like people probably don't like that, but I mean, we have to look at everything, so.
Okay. Ken, do you have a follow-up or something
No,
you want to add?
I like what the fellow Finance Committee member said. I agree wholeheartedly. And I just want to add that I used to run a candidates night every year. And the question, it was always the last question of the night, would be, as the Board of Selectmen Select Board now, but as a Board of Selectmen, would you be in favor of an override to fund the budget? And anybody that said no got my vote. We can't go year to year and ask for an override. We just can't. We have to live within our means.
Okay. Any other follow-ups here? No? All right. Wendy, you get to pick a question. You see Zach is holding up what's remaining.
How about number 9?
Okay.
My husband.
If elected to the Select Board, will you commit to being present and engaged in the community, not only by attending community events, but also by making yourself accessible outside of meetings, such as hosting coffee hours or office hours?
I love that. I definitely would. I've always felt that I've kind of put myself out there as far as anybody can reach me, through email or phone or show up my house if they'd like. But coffee hour, and I think it sounds like a great idea. But as far as being accessible, I will always be accessible if I'm on the select board or any other board. I think that is a major. You have to when you're in town, I mean, you're representing the whole town, and they're going to have questions or concerns, and they're going to want to reach out to whoever's representing them, and we have to be accessible, definitely.
Ken, do you have a follow-up or something to add?
I'll just note that last time I was a selectman, my last 3 years, we had, myself and I would always pick another different member of the board than the two of us, because you can't have a quorum, and would bring in a department head and would have a coffee on a Saturday morning at Town Hall and invite anybody that had any questions just to come in and, well, talk. I was going to say something dirty, but talk and just, like a round table and go over some ideas and, what their concerns were. Around town, I'm at Abington Celebrates. You might not recognize me because I could be wearing lederhosen, or I haven't been told what I'm wearing this weekend at the parade, but I bleed green, love this town, so you'll see me at a lot of events.
Okay. Daniel?
Yeah, throughout this, last month and a half or so that we've been running, I've received a good number of emails from folks in the town with questions, and we've had back and forth communications, and I just really think that's important, and we've kind of lacked that communication with the board and our people. The 2 remaining select board members, and Ken, because he's going to be one of them, and then whoever is chosen from the 3 of us, between Wendy, myself, or Bill, I can assure you that is going to be a very different board experience. Meeting times are going to change, the communication is going to change. It's going to be a much more transparent experience for everyone in the town.
And fun.
Regardless of who you choose between myself, Wendy, or Bill, I think that the majority of the board wants that transparency back. So.
Okay. I believe, Wendy, you have an opportunity. Do you have a follow-up or a response to what's been said here on this
Nope,
question?
I agree with them, absolutely.
Okay. Daniel, you get to pick the next number that Zachary is showing you.
Gosh, I don't like any
What's
of those numbers now.
remaining?
We'll do 21.
You like the higher numbers, huh? Okay. All right. Given the conversation in a neighboring community about closing their public library, are you aware that there are state mandated parameters for public library certification, and that other communities are not required to allow patrons of a town with a closed or decertified library to borrow materials?
Yes, I am aware. It's the what Old Colony Network, I think, is the correct term for it. So yeah, if you're in a town that is not part of that network, then technically you're not allowed to access that network of libraries in other towns. So to answer the question directly, yes, I am aware of that.
I believe they're referring to, I think Bridgewater was one of those communities that had that, and Whitman is currently having a discussion about what to do as far as funding the library. At least they had the conversation. Anybody else? Let me see, hold on. Wendy, do you have a follow-up response to that?
I am aware, yes. As far as closing, I don't know, obviously I have been paying attention to Whitman and what they're doing, but I don't know. I can see closing down some hours if we had to. I don't want to, but if we're trying to save some money, but I would definitely never close a library. There's too many people that need it, even though if we close it, for good, obviously, but if you have to bring down some hours, then at least you can. Weymouth has a few libraries. Holbrook maybe would be able to get over there a little bit, but and I'm just talking like early or late, evening hours. So nothing that would be drastic. I wouldn't hope for our town if we ever had to do that.
Ken, would you have a follow-up or something to add?
I'm aware of that, and several years ago when there was an override, there was talk of closing the library. That was discussed. But this harkens back to, we have 7 individual overrides questions. If you're going to have to go for an override, which will not happen as long as I'm a selectman, it should be one amount, so you don't pit town departments against each other, and that's what's happening here. We want it, and the town wants it. It should be the town as a whole. We worked hard. Abington Celebrates, I've worked hard to bring the town together, and I think it's very divisive when you start getting, well, am I going to pick library, or am I going to pick the schools, or am I going to pick? So I think it just harkens back to, I'm kind of off topic, but I think that has a lot to do with the animosity in towns like Whitman, because everybody's fighting for a piece of the pie.
I want to add in a special follow-up, because the individual who sent this in is actually somebody who's elected as a trustee, a library trustee. And I feel that I don't want to not ask this, because I kind of feel that these should be asked together. And it says, she says that the public library has a policy of not lending to residents of decertified communities, and has denied library services to citizens of decertified communities in the past, most recently Bridgewater residents, for several years, beginning in 2007. This policy is for the protection of Abington's investment in our library, and to be certain that library services are available to our residents, as they go on to say that they're an elected library trustee. They're curious about your commitment to helping the library safeguard the services for our residents. Anybody want to take a...
I can start with that.
Please.
The logic makes sense. When you first started reading that, I started to imagine, well, if my library closed, and I probably am not aware of that rule, and I took my child, let's just go to Abington's library. It's kind of down the street, and I'd go there. I probably would be surprised to be turned away in that moment, because I don't think it's that well known that that's a rule. But as you finish the question, I totally understand where he's coming from, that we can't just open it up to everyone across the borders of our town to come and use our services for free. So I totally understand the logic behind it.
Wendy, do you want to respond to this or give your thoughts on this?
Well,
follow-up?
I mean, I think it's terrible that if you can't go to another town as an individual or a taxpayer for the state, I think that you should be able to go to other towns, and it is a shame. It's a shame that so many towns have to make a decision on, whether that you can get a book in your own town or not, just because of everything that's going on with the taxes right now. So it's just a shame. It really is.
Okay. Ken, do you want to follow up or add
Just
something?
that every department is important in town, and I'd hate to see the library go unfunded. I talk about involvement in the community. The Lions Club, we collected 1 million pennies, it was amazing. In the parade, we had buckets, and 1 million pennies. It was just amazing, and we worked with the library, and we donated that. Comes to $10,000 in case you guys were the finance committee guy knew that. No. And we donated that back to the library. So, put my money where my mouth is. We work to make sure that every department in town doesn't go unfunded. That makes sense.
Okay. All right, so just a reminder, so we actually answered Mr. Eddy and chose 21. 22 is also now off the board. So just to
Yes, good
let our
work.
folks working behind the scenes here. Wendy, you have the choice of Zachary, of course, is going to
got
hold that board up.
I did.
What number?
16, my birthday.
Oh.
It's like really good ones.
What paths do you see to resolving the trash prices? Wendy, you have 90 seconds.
I don't think there's a clear path at this point. Just reviewing the contracts that we have, seeing what we can, if we can get it cheaper somewhere else, and if we have to even talk about, your own bag, just doing the trash based on how much you're putting out there every week. I think just might be an option. We just have to open all of our options, put them all on the table, and see what the best one would be for our town. The trash is always been kind of an issue that's been put on the table and kind of just goes away a little bit. I think, once we just get a new contract in, and then it's, wait until the next contract is up, but to decide. But I think that it's definitely an issue that we have to look at, pay per bag or another contract with a different company, or keeping the same company. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what the costs are, but reviewing it all, definitely.
Okay. Ken, you have a follow-up or something you want to add?
Something has to be done with the trash, but it has to be an equitable solution. Something that, the poor woman that lives by herself that fills a quarter of a barrel pays the same as the person that we call it, another board, we call it mushrooms, the basket, it overflows. Something's got to be done equitable, not touching the money on the two overrides. I think it was $1.4 million. The town voted, and the headlines were Abington picks trash over schools and override a few years ago. That money has to stay earmarked towards trash, whether it be added somehow to some other funds, maybe a program where you get one barrel and you buy bags if you overflow that one barrel. But it's got to be looked at, and I know there's people smarter than me that, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a former selectman. He goes to every finance committee meeting just for the trash, and he's got a lot of great ideas, and there's more than one person. They feel passionate about the trash and want to make sure that that money that was earmarked for trash stays for trash. So to get rid of the whole system is not right. Something that's equitable to everybody in town, but we need to do something about trash.
Daniel, anything you want to add?
No, those are great points. First thing is sending out for bid and seeing if we can do better. The only thing I'll add is food weighs a lot, and I've mentioned this in prior conversations. I've got 4 kids, and the food scraps weigh a ton. So if there's any ability for folks to compost, I can't, it's crazy that I'm advocating for this, but I think composting food, however you can, is going to decrease the weight. It's pretty crazy how much weight is in the food that we throw away. So,
Would you want to add to that?
I do have one.
Please.
I keep thinking about things after the fact, and more ways to kind of piss off people. But if you need to get rid of trash, the dumpsters at all the public buildings are wide open. When I was on the Board of Health and we had trash concerns, we made all town buildings lock their dumpsters at night so that people didn't dump their trash from out of town, you know, or people that overflow their baskets. People have to watch. Every department has to watch the trash in their barrels.
Anybody else? All right. Again, you are watching in Abington Cam Candidates Roundtable with Ken Coyle, Daniel Eddy, and Wendy Happel. William Cormier Jr. was unable to make it this evening due to an emergency and sends his best wishes. We are now up to Ken. You get a chance to ask, to pick another number. Of course, Zachary showing you what's remaining.
Number 1 for my 1-year term.
Ooh, okay. There are people in our community who have difficulty accessing resources and participating in events for a variety of reasons. Low income or no income, English as a second language, and disability access issues are a few that come to mind. Are there systems and processes that can be improved or created, directed by the Select Board, to ensure that every voice that wants to be heard is heard, and every person can fully access our resources and participate in our community? What would you propose?
I am not an expert on that, and I don't claim to be, but just starting with making the meetings accessible to everyone. I know that I have a secret weapon that my wife has worked for the town of Marshfield Selectmen, the town of Middleborough Selectmen, and I know the things that work there and the things that don't work there. Marshfield, let's not talk about the town because it's worse than us, but it's a mess. But they have a Zoom link. You can go and sign in. You can have ask questions as long as you know. It's more give and take. Anybody that you're sitting at your house, you're on vacation, you're in Mexico, you want to go to me, you go to the Zoom link and you can ask questions. I think it's just we need to make things more accessible. And we actually kind of talked about this a little bit before, with the advent of AI, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. But you can make, I'm sure, the meeting so that's in the person's language, or people that are hard of hearing, or people that are blind. You can make it so that they can have access to it. And I'm not an expert at any of that stuff, but we just need more transparency and more give and take with the residents of town.
Okay, Dan, do you have something that you want to add, or?
Yeah, we had talked about, this question actually came from somebody I was speaking to. It's a great question, very hard question. When I read it, I was like, wow, I don't have an answer to this. And so I had actually talked to some folks when I had hosted a candidate event at 10th District Brewery this week. And I brought this question up because I was really curious what other folks thought. And the first thing that came to mind was, all of our committee meetings and board meetings are recorded, and there's the ability to present that in other languages. I don't know exactly how that works. You might know more than I do, but we should certainly make sure that that's available, if not already, to folks. And that was the first thing. And then we were talking earlier, as Ken pointed out, about the AI piece. And something that I've always had issue with is I don't have time to, sometimes the Finance Committee meetings were 3.5 hours long. And some of these board meetings are very long. I don't have 3.5 hours to watch if I wasn't there to participate. And so I miss things. And the meeting minutes that are generated are generally not that detailed. And AI is become a wonder in that world. Like, you can submit, I've done it already. I submitted a link to a board meeting that was 3.5 hours. And I said, hey, AI, give me a 300-word summary of what was discussed in this. And if we can provide that out to the folks, some type of summary and bullet points and detailed minutes, that'll help folks actually get, feel a lot more involved.
Wendy, you have something to add or follow up?
I love that. I had no idea. No, I think that's a great idea. I also and I think that maybe you've done this, I don't know, but when you're watching a video, you know how you can do the marks as to what, like when a question is something different or when the topic's different. So I don't know if that might be helpful. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
All right, because I don't. But I don't know what it's called, but I've seen it. But so I don't know, when you're doing the minutes, or not you doing the minutes, but when the minutes are done, if there's some clarity as to the topic, basically, and then I don't know if that can be matched with what you're doing in the videos. I don't know how simple that is or hard. I don't want to create more work, but I don't know, something like that. But I love the idea of the AI.
Yeah.
I think that's very great. Yeah.
Any other follow-ups? Okay. Wendy.
Very great.
Zachary holding up what's remaining?
All right, I don't have any other birthdays. Let's see. How about number 5?
Okay. What is your opinion of how the Prop 2.5 override was presented to the townspeople, allowing each person to vote on separate departments, and how are you going to vote on them?
So I've said since 2015, when I first ran for school committee, that I've never been a fan of Proposition 2.5 because I always thought that if a town needs to cut costs, they're going to do it no matter what. And so I think that, but as a select board member, that's a totally different story because you're protecting a whole town and you're representing them. So I will be voting yes on all of the questions. Personally, I like that it's separated. I understand completely what you're talking about, Kenny, that, not pitting one department against another. But as a taxpayer, I think it really depends on the person, on what they can afford and what is good for them at the time. Obviously I'm going to say yes to the schools, but my daughter's not in school anymore. So is that an impact on me? The library, there's different things. So people, I personally like that it is separated so everybody can make the choice that's best for them.
Okay. Ken, you're next. Would you have a follow-up or something you want to add?
Oh, I just made it clear that I don't think it's the right route. I don't even sure if town meeting and these overrides are the right route. And what I mean by that is the previous town manager, this is his budget. It's not, my understanding is the overrides were planned in November. Under the old town, I'd like to see what the new town manager has. We can delay town meeting. I know it's probably everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's too late. We've already voted. But if I'm a selectman, I want to have a clear picture of what's going on. I've watched some of the finance committee meetings. They're not exactly sure what's going on either. So, and then I don't want to discredit the finance committee because they're very smart people, but I think the whole way this budget's been presented and it's working, it's just not working. I would just like to see maybe wait till we have till June 30th. Wait a little bit later. Maybe the state numbers, maybe the state will finally listen and say, yeah, you're right. We're not keeping up our share of the bargain. So, and I also got around by not answering whether I'm going to vote for him or not. I'm sorry. That's a typical politician. But I'm having a tough time. I
think everyone knows.
No. I told you. Again, I'm lucky I don't have a race, so I think I'm going to win. But the override passing would be the best thing for us as selectmen, because then we're all on the same page, one and done.
Right.
No more after this. But I don't know exactly what I'm going to vote. I'm sorry.
Mr. Eddy, do you have something to add? Or?
Yeah, I think if you look at the sequence of events that led us, and Ken's right, like the idea of an override started last year, like probably end of summer, early fall, conversations around the possibility of it. But then you look at the previous town manager leaving, and then the search committee, and then once we found in the fastest time ever recorded, we found a town manager and hired him. And then 3 select board members are now, 2 not running further and 1 resigned. So I think it put us in a position where it is either one or the other. It's either we level fund or we do an override. And I think it was, the intent of the board, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my research, the select board decides whether to put the override.
That's correct.
And so this board, I think, wanted to leave it up to the people to decide whether they wanted the override or not, whereas the board could have said, no, we're not doing it, we're going to level fund. And so keep that in mind next year. It's up to the board whether the override gets put onto the ballot. But as far as the menu option, I do genuinely think it was a good intention. They wanted to give the people the more optionality in their decision with the override. So
We have reached the 1 hour mark of our candidates roundtable. We've had a chance to answer 13 questions. What is the appetite for the folks who are here? Do you want to answer a few more? Or would you like to ask each other a couple of questions? Because right now, next up would be Ken to pick a number.
Oh, Kenny needs to pick a number.
Let's do 3 more questions, then we'll go from there.
3 more questions, I like that. Okay, so Ken,
An easy one.
Zachary, of course, is holding up.
How about number 20? No significance.
Privacy is important to many people in this day and age. What are your thoughts on the flock system having the ability to constantly monitor and track our residents, and how do we balance privacy and safety?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just to say,
It's the video.
Flock? What?
The video.
it's an automated license plate reader.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I didn't realize.
that is how they actually, the individual who did the shooting down at Brown, that's how they were able to eventually track him.
And it's a private company.
Yes.
Oh, it's not done for.
Like towns will pay a subscription to have the flock cameras set up at different areas of the town, and then the town gets the data, and so the police will be able to see license plates.
And Abington subscribes to this? They pay it?
I don't think so.
I believe that's what we recently just did.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
see, I don't know anything about it. All I know is I got 2 bills in the mail this week because we didn't have our Easy Pass and went through
me
and
too.
told somebody. So, it seems like a nuisance until you need it.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a godsend. And you see a lot of, you mentioned the Brown, but you also hear about, I think, watching the news last night, there was a police officer in another town that's looking up information, and they were taken to court because they shouldn't be looking at things they shouldn't be looking at. So it's a catch-22. It's all fine and good. And I don't really have an opinion on it. If it costs a lot of me, I don't think we should do it. I'd like to learn more about it, though, obviously, because thank you.
Daniel, do you have something to add?
I
Follow-up?
don't know if we do have it, or I don't know if you do, but I don't think that we need it personally, but Chief Bonnie might feel otherwise. And from the privacy perspective, I totally understand where they're coming from, especially because I recently read an article where the town that pays for it doesn't get to keep the data, it's the company that keeps it. And so, in fact, federal agencies are still able to access that data, even though the town might have said, no, you can't. So there are some legalities that we'd have to consider if it was part of the town. But it is, if you have like an Amber Alert or something, and you've got a license plate on a car, like it will pick it up. And so in that scenario, we would be fortunate to have it. I think where it's being abused is and I've read about this, like police officers following their ex-girlfriend or things like that. So if there are situations where that data is being abused, then we should definitely make sure that there's stiff penalties for it. But I do think in the end it would be a valuable resource for the police department.
Wendy, you have a follow-up or anything to add?
Again, I agree with these guys. It definitely is a catch-22. I absolutely believe in individual privacy, and I don't think that the state or the feds should have, so much surveillance out there, basically. But also, if you're not doing anything wrong, then what does it matter? And it does, help the police with any investigations or criminal activity that they are trying to pursue. So I don't want it for me, but it's okay for you. Like, it's one of those, you know? I mean, honestly, and especially the cost. If there's a huge cost associated with it, I think that we should hold off. And having a private company have access to our data, that's always a no for me.
Okay. Anything else on this matter? Okay. Daniel, you get the next question. Zachary, of course, is holding up that board.
We'll go 12.
Number 12. Thank you, Zachary. How strongly should we hold departments to their approved budgets? What recourse do we take if a department habitually exceeds what has been approved?
Well, I could counter that with what reward do we give to departments that come under budget? And the reward we give them is that money goes to free cash, which drives me crazy. But that's not the answer to your question. I think you develop like credit with your boss. I mean, the department head, the town manager is their boss, and if you're consistently coming over budget, I mean, you're developing a bad reputation for being able to manage your department and your budget. I mean, that's performance reviews. That's, you know, it could, you know, affect your employment. I mean, that's where I think it comes into it. And if they go over budget, we have to pull that money from somewhere else. So tracking where that comes from and making sure that next year we're remembering that we had to pull that money from this other department. A lot of times that gets forgotten in the budget process, where I don't like that. We should try to find ways to reward departments that aren't frugal, but they are efficient with how they budget and how they execute on a budget.
Wendy, you have something to add or to follow up to Mr. Eddy's response?
I mean, I agree. I think that everybody should stay in budget, and you know, I can see if it happens one time because of, you know, some extraordinary circumstance, something that comes up. But if it's habitual, then we're going to have to find a new department head.
Okay. Ken, do you have something to add or
I
follow
agree
up?
with both what the candidates said. I'd also like to note that Daniel spoke about the town should be run like a business. Well, the town should also be run like your household. If you have a budget at your house, and I would be the first to hear about if I bought, you know, a new car without talking to the boss. So just, you got to watch your pocketbook. I don't use a pocketbook, but you got to use your wallet. You just got to watch the money that you're in charge of. Mm-hmm. It's pretty simple.
Okay. Wendy, this could be the last question. You get to pick a number.
Well, then let's do 25
Okay.
for our big day.
Okay. We are being told that next year will be worse. Has anyone thought that maybe we live with the budget this year and ask for an override next year instead of both years? You have 90 seconds.
I have not thought about that. I'd love to see us not have to do this at all until a new board is in that can reconsider the budget that's already out there. I think that's a wonderful idea. And as Kenny said, we have until June 30th. Maybe we can see something that the prior committee didn't see. So, yeah, I think that if we do an override now, there won't be another override. We're just going to make sure, whoever's on the select board, that this won't happen again. We'll make sure that everybody stays in check.
Ken, do you have a follow-up or response?
I couldn't agree with Wendy more. I really think that if this board gets on, at least the three people at this table, I think we're all in unison in that regard. It's going to be a different board next year, and I think we're all fiscally responsible. I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Eddy?
And I actually really liked what the town manager did when he first arrived. What I had heard was, hey, we've got an issue. Give me your level funded budgets. And I don't remember hearing that in prior town manager meeting or finance committee meetings. Like, there was never that amount of pressure put onto the department heads. So it was really great to see that. And so I do think, I agree with both these guys that with the new board, the town manager, and just the mentality of we need to get to a better place fiscally, and everybody's aligned and on board and moving in that direction, we've got a solid opportunity to get there in the next year. So before we have to make that decision again.
Okay. You want to do one more round, or do you want to ask each other a question?
We could wrap up.
Sure.
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
Whatever works for you guys.
Great. So I proposed earlier, if you had maybe wanted to ask a question of one of your fellow candidates, what would it be? So if we were going in order here, so Wendy would be first. If you wanted to ask a question, what would a question be that you would ask of one of the other candidates?
I don't have a
maybe
question.
something that wasn't part of here, but maybe that you can continue the conversation with.
Well, I don't have a question. I really think that these candidates are great, especially for the town. And I absolutely believe too that whoever the next board, the select board is going to be completely different than before. I would absolutely love to. I know that you can't have three people talk together because it's collusion or whatever, but we need something that it's not really an executive session basically, because that's more private, but just so that we can all get together and explore the budget and explore things, so and talk about things just like we are right now. I think a lot of ideas came out from here, and I think it's a good opportunity. So I don't have anything to say to you guys. I just want to say that I'm behind you, and I know that what you representing our town on April 25th and beyond is excellent, and I'm excited for it. And hopefully I'm a part of that too.
Ken, is there maybe a question that you'd maybe want to put to one of the candidates, or maybe just something you want to say in wrapping up?
The question, I guess, is for all of us. What are we thinking? This is, I mean...
Right.
That's what my wife asked me.
Exactly. I feel bad for our spouses, too, because we come home after a meeting, it's like, what, there's a pothole in front of my house, and all kinds of different stuff. But I want to commend both these folks at this table. I mean, being a veteran is amazing. Thank you for your service. Finance committee, great backgrounds, and thank you, Wendy, obviously, the school committee. I don't know if there's any school issues come up. And Chris Coyle, we're not related, just want to let you know that. But thank you for the time and the service, and I'm glad that I've served the town, and I look forward to serving the town, and I would be a pleasure to serve with you two folks.
Oh, thanks, Kenny.
Daniel, maybe a question or maybe a final comment?
So I'll actually ask a question.
Very good.
Uh-oh.
For Ken.
Okay, Ken, okay.
Why just 1 year? Because you would have destroyed us on the 3 years. So.
Well, as we know, I've had some medical issues, and I just want to, I'm tired, and now I'm on anti-seizure medicine. I'm telling too much information, but it makes me really tired, So I might need to take a nap before meetings, like the previous board should have. But anyways, I want to get my feet wet, and I don't want to make sure I can make a difference. If I can't make a difference, I'm one and done. But if we're moving forward, and I'm really encouraged by tonight, I think we can move forward for this town. See, I'm getting emotional, but we need help, and
Well, I want to thank the three of you for participating in this special Candidates Roundtable. I think there were a lot of good questions, and I think there's a lot of good conversation, and I think it's given a lot to the voters of Abington to think about before they go to the polls on April 25th. So I want to thank all three of you for being a part of this, and we also, again, want to condole Mr. Cormier was unable to attend, but he was initially part of this and was part of the conversation. He did do a one-on-one, so again, thank you so much for being a part of this. And we also want to thank the crew that was part of this evening, from not only Ellen Byrne-Delaney, who was on our timer and making sure everybody stayed true to their 90 seconds, to
we were
Zachary.
stretching a little bit.
Yeah, Zachary, Marr, and Jameson, our interns, who did great, to Paul, David, and Matt Lyons, who behind the scenes here. We want to thank you for tuning into programs like this. The idea is to keep you better, to make you informed as somebody who makes a decision, whether it's going to be April 25th, May 4th, or May 16th. The idea is to give you enough information to be armed so when you go in and you make a decision, you feel good about your decision with all the information that we have given you. So, we want to thank you for tuning in to this Abington CAM special candidates roundtable. Until next time, have yourself a great evening and don't forget to get out and vote.